excited to share on inner child stuff. I've been working a lot on my inner child lately. I've had some pretty big triggers the last few weeks, and you know, triggers get me going. Like triggers are still, after I've been in CoDA for 15 years now, and clean and sober for 24, and triggers still knock me to my knees sometimes, but I know that the quickest way that I can take good care of myself and come out of a trigger is to really pay attention to what's going on for the little girl, that's inside me, that's wounded. And triggers are, very often regression. For me, a lot of times it's PTSD that comes up. There's a message that I'm picking up from the experience or the interaction with a person or my situation. There's a message that I'm picking up that says I'm in danger and there's a bear attacking me. So triggers always feel like there's a bear attacking me and I'm all alone and I have to figure out how to fend off this bear, and, usually it's just fear and shame and doesn't really have anything to do with reality. Um, and so one of the things that got me, you know, working on inner child work in my early CoDA recovery was that, I'd be like, going along, doing just fine. Like life is good. I'm working the steps. I'm going to meetings. I'm handling life. I'm learning all these things, like learning about boundaries or learning about this or whatever. And, and then I'd get triggered and like all my recovery was out the window like that fast, just I felt like paralyzed, paranoid, abandoned again, like I have no resources. Like I learned nothing. Have I learned nothing, and that was how I would feel like a lot of times in a trigger. And, recognizing that like from a triggered state, I am in my inner child. I'm not in my self parent. I'm in my wounded child. I'm in my trauma. I'm in my PTSD. And so what do I do about it from there? And that was when I really had to learn how to pull out that self parent. And one of the greatest tools that I learned is that if I can see my little girl, if I can see her and connect with her, if I can see her little face and her little body, and if I can see her pain on her face, and if I can see her tears, and if I can see her confusion or her joy, if I can see her, I'm not in her. And that was a game changer for me because I didn't know how to get out from in her. you know so it was like like you can't self parent from in the inner child, because all you're going to do is that's all we know is what we know. That's what we knew then. That's what we've done our whole life, is self parented from inside the wounded child, right? So the self parenting that I do from inside the wounded child is what was modeled: criticism, uh you know perfectionism, control, avoidance, denial, one up. A lot of times for me, I tend to be more on the one up side than the one down side, but depending on the person I'm around, I can go one down. And what's wrong with me? Why can't I figure this out? So a lot of that helplessness, hopelessness, um building a case against somebody. So that's self-parenting. When I'm stuck in the child, I've got to pull out of the child and find my self-parent and go, okay, where is my grown-up? My grown-up has access to God. My wounded little child does not have access to God. She's abandoned, she's alone, she doesn't have boundaries, she's in her trigger. So um so that was a really big helpful tool. And I remember going, like I remember going for days in a trigger sometimes. And, then finally like talking to my sponsor or my therapist about it. And, have you checked in with your little girl? And I'd be like, oh yeah, my little girl. Like I forgot she existed again, you know, and and then be able to, find that way to bridge that and connect with her, and then feel, and then grow myself up and feel like, oh, okay, well, when my frontal lobe is operating, then I do have God and I do have resources and I do have boundaries and I do have hope and I have all of this experience that tells me that I'm going to be okay and that this is not as big a deal as it feels like. But if I'm stuck in my kid and I can't get out, then the world is imploding and everything I've ever done never works. And life always ends this way, right? Like I'm stuck in the shame. I am stuck in the abandoned child. So I've got to find a way out of her. And I've got to see her to connect with her. I've got to see her in order to start parenting her and have access to my higher power and my resources. So so that was super helpful to realize that I can't self-parent from inside the child, and that the first thing I have to do is to see her. And so, some of the best tools that I've used is talk to her, see how she's doing, what is she feeling? What is she experiencing? Just put my vision on her, just close my eyes and imagine her, you know? So we're going to do a really quick little exercise and then we're going to get on the PDF and start working through the steps. But, and I don't have time to share my story because I really want to get us through as many of the steps as we can, if not all of them. Like that would be a miracle. Um, but, uh, but I want to do a quick exercise. So everybody, I want you to take a deep breath and try to pull your consciousness down into your heart. See if you can pull you down into your heart, out of our little busy mind, and center yourself in your heart, center your consciousness in your heart. And now in your mind's eye, I want you to see your little inner child. See your inner child. Let them be wherever they're at, doing whatever they're doing. Just see them. And I want you to feel connected to them. As you're observing them and as you're watching them, feel you like energetically reach out and connect to them. You pull them into your consciousness with you. Now I want you to feel belonging. Feel a sense of belonging, whatever that looks like for you. And share that feeling with them. See that belonging as energy that then encompasses you and your inner child. And now I want you to pull your higher power into that belonging. And feel a sense of family. This is your healthy family. You, your self-parent, your inner child, and your higher power. All in your heart, in this deep sense of belonging. And now come back. So my hope for you is that that was easy for you to envision and easy to connect to, and that it happened just really naturally. That would not have been my experience when I first got here. I like belonging felt like so far away, and seeing my inner child just triggered lots of fear and shame and questions and busyness in my head. And then of course I felt intimidated and like afraid of unworthiness came up for me around my higher power. So that was some of my experience when I first got here, but it probably still would have given me some hope, have a visualization like that and be like, well, that would be pretty effing cool. If I could just, imagine my inner child and me and God as this healthy family, this core unit, of of connection, the deep resource that our higher power brings, this immense love that we have for our inner child, you know, our preciousness, and to live from that place instead of, like, for me, always looking for that sense of belonging in someone else's approval, in someone else's life, in someone else's arms, or lots of other people's arms. Definitely in love addicted relationships. You know, I'm a love addict too. Um, and, you know, craving and searching, that wounded little child, always searching for that feeling of belonging everywhere, looking for it everywhere, you know. So that is our responsibility in our CoDA work, is to create an environment where that sense of belonging is our home within, that we always nurture, you know. And if we're not there today, that's okay. We just show up as best we can, we care for it, and we nurture that sense of belonging. You know, we invite it to happen. We learn things that, you know, that allow belonging to happen. You know, we work the steps on the stories that keep us from that sense of belonging, our unworthiness or our fear, or I'm not enough. You know, we heal the trauma from our childhoods that tell us that we're not enough, you know. So we just keep working at it and keep looking at forward to that, you know, that sense of belonging. And we appreciate it when it comes, and we acknowledge this esteem that we get from creating that for ourselves, because it is a miracle for a codependent to feel a sense of belonging from within. That is a miracle. No different from the miracle of, like, an alcoholic having a day without desiring to drink, you know. um so anyway, okay, so I'm going to do a screen share. Thanks for doing that exercise with me, guys. And here is the PDF, and we're going to get started. All right, using the 12 steps to self-parent, living happy, joyous, and free. All right. Okay, so we're gonna jump right in. So step one, we admitted we were powerless over others, and that's what our CoDA step says. But in this case, we're gonna be focusing the steps on self-parenting. So we were powerless over self-parenting, and that our lives had become unmanageable. And, you know, just so I can preface all of the steps with, like, these are just assignments, short little writing assignments, or heartfelt assignments that I created for each step. Of course, the steps are way more involved and deep and comprehensive, but we're going to touch on all the steps. If we can get through them all today, that would be great, just so we can have a sense of what that, you know, how the steps relate to other things. Or specifically, I've done the steps on, you know, love addiction, rage, drugs and alcohol. I've done the steps on just like an event that happened. I've done steps on my trauma from my childhood, my sexual abuse. You know, so I mean, you can take the steps and then apply them very specifically to, like, one thing or a trigger, or you know, like spending. You know, I mean, you can work the steps on anything. So this will maybe give some people a feel for how to go ahead and do that. I always recommend working the steps with a sponsor or with a group. We get so much more out of working with others, you know, because other people can see our blind spots, you know, and the healing that we get from exposing ourselves and telling the truth about ourselves and being loved in that way is priceless. So, but with that said, this is what we're going to do in a workshop today. So, I'm going to give you guys some chance to write, and we're going to do a little bit of writing. So if you guys don't already have paper and pen, go ahead and grab that. And hopefully we'll have time for 2 breakout groups where you guys can share some of the writing. Probably around step 5, we'll do a breakout group, and then we'll try again at step 9 to do a breakout group. So do I have difficulty with any or some of the following? So these are important aspects of self-parenting: taking care of my needs and wants, setting or keeping boundaries, creating the life I want, and that should say and deserve, making good choices, and feeling happy and fulfilled. And how does that difficulty make me feel about myself, treat myself, or talk to myself? So I'll give everybody a couple of minutes to write. So we're going to go into step 2. came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So in the step two, I used to hate the word restore us to sanity because it implied I was insane, and then I got it. I was. So now I always love that, like what is insane that I'm trying to force. So parenting that doesn't work is insane. Shaming, blaming, critical comparisons, punishing, withholding, deprivation, self-abandonment, neglect, apathy, sabotage, ignoring, controlling, perfectionism, rigidity, right? That is all self-parenting. It's just really bad self-parenting and self-parenting that doesn't work. It might be a way to control the immediate uh, behavior, or the immediate feeling, but ultimately, the goal of parenting is to create, humans that are self-regulating and that can get along with others. None of this does that. So it is parenting that doesn't work. And yet we still do it, right? I mean, I can look at this list and be like, I don't do that nearly as much as I used to, but it still happens. And it is insane. So how have you self-parented that hasn't worked? And I'll just give you guys a minute to write. Okay. Next slide. So denying our inner child's true nature is insane. So we're still on step two, and it's about, looking at what we're doing that we have to surrender. So our child's true nature, children often are lazy. They try to get attention and they need to be right, and they make messes and they get distracted. And children often are irresponsible. Children often avoid discomfort. Children often test boundaries, try to get away with things, pursue what feels good. Children often get confused, and children often go through stages. This is just a child's nature. They are supposed to be that way. But children are often also non-judgmental and innocent and playful and curious and relational and fearless and trying and authentic and let go easily. And they're teachable and passionate and caring and creative and open-minded. Like children have amazing nature. The nature of a child is so beautiful, and it wasn't mirrored back to a lot of us that way. And that's why we forget about the good stuff. But it's funny when we look at this stuff as an adult and we go, oh my gosh, those are all the things I'm trying to do and teach myself and how I'm trying to live now. But it was what I originally had as a child. It just got kind of like neglected or stomped out of me, right? So we want to look at the nature of the child and accept all of who they are. So list the ways that you have denied your inner child's nature. And so on the left is the kind of negative, and then on the right is the positive. But they're really not that black and white. So I'll give you guys a minute. Okay, we're going to keep going. Are you willing to help your wounded inner child mature and heal, allowing him or her to belong to your new healthy family? And do you believe that your higher power can restore you to sanity in your self-parenting? We'll take 2 minutes to do a little writing on that. Okay, we're going to keep going. Step 3, made a decision to turn our will and lives over to the care of God as we understood God. So here's some writing. Am I ready to let God be my higher parent and show me how to better parent myself? Am I ready to surrender my ideas and expectations about how me and my life should be? And what kind of higher parent do you need for you to be happy, joyous, and free? So we'll take 2 minutes to write on this. Okay. Step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. So this is how I see parenting 101. So first, we stop the bleeding. Pay attention to what is creating the most pain right now. Where are you in the most pain? And then we get healthy, so we care for our needs, and we get happy and care for our wants. So to me, it's like that's the priority, like we go from a place of what's the most danger that I'm in. And so let's do a little journaling. Am I regularly in pain, emotional, physical, and or spiritual? Like that is the first thing that I need to care for. Do I often avoid my pain by denying, ignoring, obsessing, pitying, minimizing, blaming, or otherwise neglecting it? How well do I love and adore me, caring for my needs and wants without judgment or criticism? So we want to do this from a place of healthy responsibility and not from a place of toxic shame. This isn't about witch hunting on ourselves to see what we're doing wrong. This is about learning what we need to turn over and what we got to work on and care for. So hold yourself in high regard as you do this work. Okay. And we'll take 2 minutes to write. Let's take 3 minutes to write. This is a big one. Okay. So step 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. So this is where we're going to do some breakout groups. I invite everybody to share whatever part of the first 4 steps that you that feels the most important to you. You can either read what you wrote, or you can just kind of share off the hip, however you want to do that. Just share the time. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you guys had a chance to share and support each other. And we're going to go ahead and move on to step 6. So step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. So back to the paper. Are you ready to build a healthy, loving, and intimate relationship with your self-parent, your inner child, and your higher parents? And I call my higher power higher parents. So you can definitely call them God or higher power, whatever is right for you. And then what defects of character have you tried to remove that you can now ask your higher power to remove? So we'll take a couple minutes to write on those. Step 7, humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings. So write a note to your higher parent and ask them to remove your shortcomings. This is a good place to ask for help, trusting them to parent you and being trustworthy to your inner child. But write whatever feels natural for you, and we'll take a couple minutes to do this. Step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. And in this step, we're going to be looking at the inner child and our amends to the inner child. So ask your inner child to write you a note and tell you what they need and want from you as a parent. Just like in amends, we ask what we can do to fix the harm. So we'll take a couple minutes for this. Okay, we're going to keep going. So step 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. So as your self-parent, ask your higher parent to guide you as you decide how you can care for these needs and wants that your inner child just shared with you. And then write a letter to your inner child, making amends and letting them know how you will care for their needs and wants. And we're going to take like 5 minutes on this. I'll let you know when 4 minutes is up, and then we'll kind of see where everybody's at. Okay, that's about 5 minutes. Do you guys want another couple minutes, or everybody? I think we'll go ahead and do breakout rooms then again. Okay, let's keep going. So, step 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. So, can I accept that I'm a work in progress as a child, as a self-parent, and as a codependent? What parenting principles will help me work this step? Okay, we're going to move on. Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood God, praying only for knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out. So, this is Heidi's version of step 11. My job is to pray, meditate, and be available for the relationship. And God's job is the will and the power, you know? And I usually try to do God's will or God's job instead of just my job. So, a lot of the step work for me is getting myself to do my job and not try to do God's job. So these are important questions for me to look at. So I wanted to share them with you. How often does my higher parent want to talk to me, and why? Like, for me to reflect on these things. What does my higher parent like to share with me, and why? What does my higher power like to do with me, and why? What does my higher parent want to teach me, and why? And what does my higher parent want to heal in me, and why? So this is the understanding part of the step. We want to understand God. So I'm going to give you guys, like, I don't know, 4 minutes on this one. I'll give you a 3-minute warning. Okay, guys, let's go ahead and go on to step 12. So, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to other codependents and to practice these principles in all our affairs. So we're going to carry this message to the inner child and practice these principles in that relationship. So my job as the self-parent is to pray and meditate and be available for the relationship. And the inner child's job is to be a child. So we're going to ask the same kinds of questions so that we can care about these relationships instead of try to control them or try to, or just ignore them until they're, that's the problem with us as self-parents often, is that we don't do anything until there's a crisis, or we don't know that the child is hurting until we're in so much pain. It's like, we're just so used to being in pain. We're so used to feeling abandoned. We're so comfortable in being neglected that we don't know until there's a crisis, until like life is falling apart, or somebody triggers it because they reject us or abandon us. We don't know that we're in a chronic state of neglect and abandonment because we're not taking care of ourselves, right? So we want to build habits where we take care of ourselves on a regular basis. And that's why we have to put our attention on these relationships and make decisions about what would that look like to show up for that little girl all the time. What would it show up to, or what would it look like to show up in our relationship with our higher power, where we asked for help on a regular basis, where we asked for relief, where we shared our pain, so we want to start building those habits. We've very often been so self-regulate, I don't know, isolated, I guess, where we have often felt like, oh, it's me against the world. We're not used to reaching out and, sharing our stuff with others and trusting that something will walk us through or carry us, or that there can be relief from the pain. So Okay, so here's the questions again that we want to consider. How often does my inner child want to talk to me, and why? And what does my inner child want to share with me, and why? What does my inner child want to do with me, and why? What does my inner child want to learn from me, and why? And what does my inner child want me to heal for them, and why? So we're caring about what this inner child wants. So we're going to do the same thing. We'll take, I'll tell you when it's 3 minutes, and we'll take 4 minutes. Okay, that's 4 minutes. So we do have time for breakout rooms again, since we're going for, we still have another half hour. I'm thinking that we make this one long. So if anybody had some stuff from the other steps that they still needed to share, they can use their time for that. Let's make it a 15-minute breakout. And then when we get back here, we'll do Q&A for the last of the meeting, however much time is left. And then we'll be able to close up at 3 Arizona time ish. Okay. I'm Heidi. I'm codependent. Welcome back, everybody. I hope everybody had some good time to connect and share your work with each other and inspire each other. And what we're going to do is just go ahead and close up with, we're going to pray out. And then anybody that wants to stay on can, and we can do some Q&A for a little while since we closed up early. First, I want to say congratulations on working the 12 steps. For some of you, this is probably the first time you actually got all the way through. So it was like a fast set of steps, but it's powerful to feel that that sense of like being in the solution and knowing that there's hope and that there's the principles that are behind these steps that walk us through anything. So that has been, my experience in my, 24 years of step work, is that the steps will get me through anything, and that God works in my life through the steps. So anyway, I pray for all of you that you can build that loving connection inside, so that you can carry that sense of belonging with you. Something like what I have with my higher power and my little girls. And